What is up? What is up? This is Celso Oliveira. I am here. Black and Gold Talk. Celso and Erik, one more year, and we're here to talk LAFC. This is section 128, a new LAFC podcast. We appreciate you being here. All kinds of technical issues. Of course, we had them, but we're here live on my X. It's not something that we're going to be doing for a very long time. We have our own dedicated YouTube where the show will be posted fully right after its conclusion, but they wanted to make sure we're legit. They want to make sure we're not going to post anything stupid before they allow us to go live. So with that, we're having a little bit of a hiccup and broadcasting from my personal YouTube, but the content is the same. We're here to talk LAFC. We're here to talk CCL, CCC, however you think. And Erik Hultstrom's here with me. Erik, how are you, my friend? I'll let you talk a little bit about what is it that we're going to be doing here. And thank you so much for once again be doing this with me. Episode 1, baby.
Episode 1, man. And 10 minutes late, technical difficulties. We're learning all kinds of stuff that we never had to learn before. But, you know, necessity is the mother of all invention. So here we are, streaming on X. We got all of our stuff set up. There's a lot to this project. One is we really want to try to focus on bringing in other fans, other podcasters of other teams so we can really talk. And, you know, part of it is kind of blurring the lines between journalist and fan. There's so much like separation to that, but this is soccer, football. There's no way to deal with the sport without having a lot of passion. So that's kind of why we're here. We're here to try to cover as much news as we can, crowdsource with all of our fellow LAFC fans, and try to do some things that traditional media can't or won't do, and just keep things engaged. Try to keep it fun. Talk about what's going on with the players. Give our points of view, our opinions, our learned knowledge from all of our years of watching sports and humanity in general. And hopefully it's going to be something interesting for you guys. We got a couple good guests coming on for you today. We got Braidon Nourse from the Colorado Rapids coming on today. And then we also have Colin from Lunacy Podcast, which is a Minnesota podcast this year. So we should have some good things, talk about these games. We have 2 games coming up. Not only do we have Colorado tomorrow in the freezing cold and snow in a game that must go on, unlike another game in the cold and snow that was postponed, but we also have our home opener against Minnesota on Saturday. Not to mention we had a very lovely friendly against Club America last weekend, which was a fun time and a good warm-up for the stadium.
Yeah, dude. First of all, great to be here. We did it. We introed it. So let's have fun with this. I know it's a lot. It's live, so it's hard to do. And there was a lot of debate between Erik and I where we were going to do this live right off the bat. But I'm glad that we're live because it gives us, like this uncuffed, unreserved opinion about what's going on with LAFC, which is what we've talked about for 2-3 years now. And once again, the season's starting and LAFC is going to have a packed jam schedule this year, Erik. And we start with this game that just happened last week that gave us a little bit of a glimpse, right, of what this season's going to look like. We have Club America coming into the BMO Stadium. First game of the season, packed house, for a friendly. You have Club America fans everywhere. They're passionate fans. Of course, we're in the Southland here in California, and they take over the stadiums. We've seen it before. So, what did you see from that game? Not only from the stands, but also the fact that, you have a win against a team, right, that was in form coming in here, maybe not to show their best football, right, but, put a competitive game. And you saw a very competitive side, and trying to come at us from the beginning, no?
Yeah. For me, I got to be consistent. I always say a preseason game is just a preseason game. It's a scrimmage. You can't really take anything away from it. You just hope that all your players get out of it healthy, which in our case, it doesn't look like that happened. So that's one downside. But we got to kind of see how this team is built, how they're coming together. Between that and the Coachella game, we've had 2 opportunities to kind of see how the 2025 attack is going to look. And I know last season we talked about it. How this team is going to attack moving forward is always been a big question mark that we had. And especially with Giroud coming up in a target 9, how are they going to react to a target 9 versus a false 9, which Matty Bogusz gave us? And we kind of saw that, I think. Looking at it, it looks like Giroud is going to continue to be more of a target man playmaker than it seems like Giroud's kind of sitting in more of a false 9 position rather than an upfront striker and laying the ball off to Denny or laying it off to Martinez and maybe Ordaz moving forward. And if it kind of sticks like this, I could see this as being an effective way. As long as we're scoring goals and winning, that's that. We saw Igor Jesus. Oh, man, I know. I saw you shake it. Igor Jesus, and all my Brazilians are mad at me. Looking very sharp in the 9. We have
learn, man.
I know. We had David Martinez coming off with an injury. It looked in the stands, it kind of looked like a groin injury. He may, we're speculating based off just our own opinions. It looks like a 4 to 6 week injury that we may be without him. Which
damn, you got a diagnostics.
Man, we saw him pull up on the run, and he was holding his groin the whole time, and sitting with my man Pookie. He was like, "I pulled my groin playing baseball." He's like, "That's 4 weeks you're out minimum. Like you can't do anything." And then we saw LAFC a couple days later sign Under, a Turkish right wing who plays the same position. So I think those, they looked at it. Looking at Ordaz, who filled in very nicely at the game, is he ready to take the jump? And I think the team just aren't ready to trust him with the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is the biggest competition here. So I think we'll see Ordaz get a lot of minutes in the regular season. But I think for the Champions Cup, they're going to try to get Under here and acclimated as fast as they can.
Dude, so that's interesting. I think we have our first debate of the season, 8 minutes into this program, 10 minutes late. The fact that I do not believe this is reactive, the bringing of Under is definitely something timely,
for
right?
6
And
months?
we have a player that we really need for 6 months, but I don't think it was because David Martinez busted his hamstring. I don't think it was that reactive of a move. However, we know that JT is an extremely opportunistic man. He's always looking for options out there, and there's always those 2 last guys that come in for those short loans. I think someone in our chat said that it's this season's Christian Teo. We just hope he has a slightly better outcome than Christian did with our team. But look, you're right. I think Nathan Ordaz, of course, was the biggest surprise of this game, right? He was certainly a great positive surprise for all of us because he most certainly is looking like he's going to be a viable option for LAFC. But I know that the coaching staff doesn't have a ton of, I'm going to say, patience with young guys at this point. So, bringing an experienced guy from Europe that's been a pivotal player in other rosters is very smart. And I think he will play really quality minutes for LAFC. But I do not understand the length of that. 6 months for a player, is really a rental. And then now suddenly we're in the middle of the summer, Eric, and we need this guy to perform for us for the next 6 months. What do we do about it? Do we purchase? Do we extend his loan?
No.
What do you think about that?
No, this deal, it's like a $25 million purchase clause. There's no way this is ever intended to purchase. What I think it is I think it gives a player a bit of a reset. It seemed like, reading through the comments of Fenerbahce fans on Twitter, which is a very scientific way to do it, I know. But it seemed like a lot of them were a little bit sour on him, that he's kind of underperformed. And I think for him, maybe 6 months somewhere else with a chain of scenery will allow him to kind of get his groove back and then go back to Fenerbahce with a different attitude when their next season campaign starts. And I think for us, I think Martinez had a little bit to do with it. I also think the Kike Oliveira moving on to Gremio also fills a roster hole, probably has something to do with it as well. And we all know the Antoine Griezmann rumor has been going on for a while, which the next window is this summer. So they get a 6-month loan. This does something for Fenerbahce. It does something for us. And then, it's never intended to be permanent. This is just a loan. And it's, we're going to see if this is what we need for the Champions Cup. He's a He's a DP level guy.
He is. Yeah. No, I was going to say, the Griezmann rumor has graduated in my mind to the Griezmann tail or the Griezmann, whatever you want to call it, but it's no longer a rumor. This thing is a story in the background that will not go away, and it haunts this team because it puts a lot of weight on the expectations on a lot of different parties. I do not like this perspective of having Griezmann play for us. If you want to play for us, make an announcement. I'm coming in 6 months, but I have something I want to do here and finish it, and make yourself very, very clear that you're coming. It is not uncommon to do so, but this pisses me off because it creates a lot of false hope, and I do believe that if LAFC has a chance to make a really good run at a young player that could fill that fourth wide, young DP player, if you want to call it, or U23, I think this would be a viable alternative to the Griezmann tail, right? But, again, as I said on Twitter, I know how that's not how things work. I know the potential that he has from a marketing standpoint, right? And if he does come, kudos to us. And same thing with the Turkish player. I want to talk to you about the controversy with, the population, the Turkish player, with the Armenian population in LA. We're not going to do this yet. I'm going to keep this, for later in the show. And just really to conclude, out of Club America, right? Do you think this team is ready to compete for the top of the West? I asked you this question before we saw the team, against Club America, and now, I have a different opinion. And I'm curious to think, what do you think of this team after you saw them play at BMO against a quality, very good Club America team?
No, when I saw this team at Coachella, especially the addition of Marty Delgado is a massive addition for us. And yes. Looking at this, and I was on the Battered podcast show earlier this week where they're reviewing all the teams. Shout out to those guys. And they asked, they said, hey, they didn't think we look as good. I think that we look better this season than we did last season. I think we've upgraded 2 positions at our midfield. Upgrading Atuesta to Igor Jesus, huge upgrade. And I also think that I believe that Delgado is as good or even an upgrade from what Lewis O'Brien did for us. From what I've seen with Delgado, he's much more fluid in his interlink play. And this is something Lewis O'Brien didn't really have. He was a progressive carrier, but Delgado's like he's a 1-2 passing guy, and he creates some opportunities. So I think our midfield is improved from what it was last season. I also think our back line is also looking improved from last season. I know Murillo left. That's a big hole, but he was a bit of an inconsistent player, and we have some other guys in there ready to go. We're
right deep there, man. Yeah, it's a deep center back. We'll talk about that, yes.
And then up front, is kind of a wash. They're still figuring out. I do think Obobisi is an upgrade from Kai Kamara. I love Kai Kamara, but Obobisi is an upgrade there. And then we have Martinez for Oliveira. I think that's kind of a wash, but I think Martinez has a better ceiling, and I think he's going to play better with Giroud than Oliveira did, who kind of just outran Giroud up front, and that was a huge problem. So the fullback position,
we'll see. It's to be seen. And the thing about Oliveira, if I may comment on that, is that he played at the two-way position really well. And I think that frustrated him. And I also comment on that. I think that the fact that he was tasked defensively so much really pissed him off because he knew that took some of his gas away to take shots and be a scorer. And here us all criticizing this man for not scoring enough. So it was kind of like, well, what do you want me to do? And then suddenly here you come, Eric, and say, this guy should be a fullback. He's excellent at this. Or maybe a wing back if we played the 5-back. And I thought, yes, it's an excellent idea, but go convince any striker that it's a good idea to be a defender, and you're going to find very, very quickly that they don't want to do that. So it's a philosophy issue, which I think ends up alienating some of these South America slingers. A lot of them are wingers, right? They want to score. They want to show that they can do the things that we all want them to do. And, they get pissed off and want to get out, right? And now he's at Grêmio, an unhappy finish to his career at LAFC. Maybe. I think we got enough money out of that deal that if he pops and we sell him over, or Grêmio sells him over after his stint in Brazil, ends up being a win for us. I've never seen as much of Kike as everybody wanted to see. I've always seen disappointment for myself because we didn't get the one player that is now in San Diego that I thought would come to us. But ultimately, that's what we got, man. Like, it's a fierce competition for players out there in the band of worthiness that MLS teams can afford. So when a player becomes available, it's almost like a fight for them, right? So if any of them wants to play for LAFC, you jump on them. We lost Kike Oliveira, that's great, but if again, Mr. Gentleman from Turkey wants to play for LAFC, I really think that it solves all the problems and it gives Martinez a little bit of time to heal. He's a young guy. It's a hamstring. It will heal, and it will be back soon. But it reminds me a little bit of Galoppo, the young guy that played for São Paulo like last couple seasons and kept getting injured because he didn't have the pace and the strength to play with the big boys. So let's see how it progresses with him. 2 major injuries now in 2 seasons, right? We know that we haven't been really patient with players that have a history of injury. So before we bring in Braidon here from Colorado, final thoughts on LAFC, Clube America, again, and then please talk about what are you seeing here already, in the beginnings of what it's going to be a CCC run, right? Do we have enough in the tank? Do we have enough depth, right, to make a CCC run in the beginning of the season, especially given that it looks like we have a major injury to Nourse here in the midfield?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to our fullbacks stepping up. And I also think that going through, Giroud's not going to be a 90-minute player. So I think the way I've seen us play in preseason, we start with a 4-3-3. And when Giroud comes out, they shift it to a 3-4-3. And so it's going to come down to the wing backs on the 3-4-3. I think we're going to be going with some youth on some of these. And so we could have but we're going to be putting guys into that position that we're not familiar with, that weren't on the team last season. And it's going to be about them stepping up. If they can step up, we're going to be fine. Ordaz, that kid looks like he's put on 40 pounds of solid muscle and came up 6 inches in the last year. All of a sudden he went from a kid to a man. And so if he can step up his game as well and start using his bulk and his muscle up front to be more of a physical presence, I think we could see the best ball we've seen out of him, and I think a lot of us last season were a little skeptical that he was ready to take that jump, but now it's not so sure. So he's another wild card that's going to make this season successful or not.
Yeah, I love these fringe guys. I think they make or break your season. I think when we go through our starting lineups for this game, there's not going to be a ton of surprises. But, that's what makes a new season exciting to me, is that you just don't know who's going to step up. Is it going to be Yeboah? Who's going to be this X factor player that we're going to be talking about in the future episodes to come? Is it Nathan Ordaz? Is he going to continue to develop in a great player like we've seen in some of the other rosters? So there's so much unknown at this point with 0 games, right? 2 friendlies and whatnot. Lastly, before I bring Braidon in, is to talk about Igor Jesus, because you brought it up, the fact that he seems to be the right guy for the job, a true 6, but show some true immaturity on the Clube America goal. You have a 2-0 lead, you're coasting to a victory without any issues, and then you basically give the ball away inside of your own box, right next to your captain, by the way. He does not look happy with you, and then they do a quick pass and score a goal, which could have cost LAFC that victory. I know it was meaningless, but it was a teaching moment for the young guy. What did you think of that? Do we make anything of it? I had my thoughts, but again, it's a preseason game, so we're kind of basically saying, all right, we'll let that one pass, right?
I think this is something that players around the world generally they have a preconceived idea about MLS, that it's a much easier league. And to me, that's really more what this mistake, what I hope it is him just underestimating the quality of players we have in this league and thinking that, when you're a player, you don't fuck around in your box like this and dribble around. You don't make those stupid passes. This is something you learn as a young child. And, I think he came to this league and was a little overconfident and thought that he could do things that you weren't supposed to do because he was that much better than everybody else. And he fucked around and found out. So he needs to
fuck around and found out. That's a good one,
so,
buddy.
Igor, sometimes you just need to boot that ball out of bounds and reset. And that's that. And if he can't do that anymore, and hopefully it's out of his system.
It is out of his system. I'm gonna not file that under. It's the Brazilian way to play. Once you're inside of your box, just try to dribble yourself out of trouble. I'm sure he had some great conversations with the coaching staff, and I love what he's doing there. He really seems in control, poised. Cherundolo called him a quarterback, right? A quarterback, and I thought that was an amazing analogy. First of all, if you call anybody a quarterback, you're implying that they are of extreme intelligence, and that's what I see out of that player. High IQ at a very young body. But you can see when you're under pressure, you can make mistakes. So there's still a lot of grooming. He's not Elias Sanchez. Elias Sanchez mistakes was for lack of, if you may, like lack of aggressiveness and physicality. So with these young guys, we might end up with some, pretty unfortunate mistakes, but a lot more firepower and reaction power. So it's good to know. It's good to see some of that energy, but like I said, I'm glad it happened in a friendly. But look, now no more friendly talk. I know MLS season is right around the corner. We have a game to talk about actually before and after we talk about the Conca Champions game. But, this year we have the pleasure of playing on this really cool tournament, which puts you in a kill position, as I like to call it, right off the bat. And it puts you in a position where your roster also has to be ready from day one. There's no such thing as we'll figure it out as the season goes, because this is, in a sense, one of the biggest, if not the biggest prizes of the season, Eric. And to talk about this really important game, LAFC versus Colorado Rapids, the first game of the season for LAFC, the first match of this journey on the CCC, we have Braidon Nourse. He's here with us directly out of Colorado. I won't even ask you how cold it is, or we will get there by the time this game started. But Braidon, thank you so much for joining us on the first ever episode of Section 128.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Celso. Eric, it's good to see you. A couple times, maybe just once, we were on the Battered podcast that you already mentioned. It was a great time.
Shout out to Daniel over there, man.
Yeah, doing great stuff over there. It's good to be here. Good to talk some Rapids, and it's really soon, but good to be back in the season.
It's been 2 months, right? Eric, go ahead.
Let me start. Is it cold enough to cancel an MLS game today? Is it that cold in Colorado?
No.
All right.
Not quite. It's riding the line. I mean, I guess that's subjective. If you have a team from, a Pacific state like LA, or a city or whatever, or Miami, well, I bet you guys will talk about that later. But, yeah, maybe it is too cold, but
today already.
It's cold. It is cold.
Yeah. But
that's how it goes,
but it's how it goes. Yes,
it's how it goes. Yeah,
it's how it goes. Yeah, Braidon, and I appreciate you joining us. And by the way, thank you for the over 300 people that are tuning in live. I had no idea how many people would be here, and if it was 1 or 3,000 or 300, it would be the same amount of thankfulness. But thank you so much for listening to this conversation. And yeah, we got this first game of the season for both of our teams. We actually eliminated the Rapids out of the playoffs last season, if I'm not mistaken.
You don't need to dig that up.
And no, we do, because now you have a chance right off the bat to give us a little bit of payback, And what do you think right off the bat? What do you think of this game and this opportunity to start the season, as we Brazilians say, with the right foot, which means you're gonna kick our butt with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we just talked about, I think the cold will play a factor. But you got to realize that a few of these guys who are coming into Colorado are not used to this kind of cold. And I mean, I guess a lot of the LAFC guys are not used to this either, but it's going to be a grind for both of these teams. And I think it's a good opportunity. Chris Armas said today in a press conference that if you want to start the season off right, you want to start with a test like this, not only against a team like LAFC, who has gone through some changes, Colorado has as well, but in the frigid, freezing, finger falling off kind of cold.
Finger falling off, great.
Yeah. So looking at your roster right now, what are the big changes from last season? Do you have a lot of big changes?
I wouldn't say huge changes. It's not like last season where you're bringing in guys like Zach Steffen, you bring Sam Vines back, and you get Georgi Mihailovic, who ends up being your goal contribution single season record holder. But you've got guys here I have a list in front of me. Out. Sebastian Anderson, a defender who basically never played. Daniel Chacon, a defender who never played for the Rapids. Same thing with,
either.
Yeah. Miguel Navarro, he never played for the Rapids. Jasper Loffelson, who barely played and for whatever reason got taken in the expansion draft to San Diego FC. We won't get into that. Ethan Bandre, a goalkeeper who never played. And the Rapids loaned out Nate Jones, a defender who never played. The only two guys who were contributors who left were an aging Lawless Abubakar, who...
Right.
Yeah, he lost some step already.
The face of MLS, by the way.
Yeah, I like him. I like
the logo.
He was dangerous, but yeah, last year he was kind of out of juice.
Yeah, and he was a good stopgap for a little bit after the Moise Bombito sale, but obviously he's an aging guy. People were really, really sad to see him go because he was kind of a fan favorite for basically all of his time here. Played a big role on and off the field for different reasons. And then the other one, an aging Jonathan Lewis, who just got signed to Barnsley in the Championship or in League One, wherever they play at this point.
Yeah.
But, the guys they brought in, I think, upgraded those positions. We'll see about Winger and Jonathan Lewis, but they did get a guy who's younger and shows a lot more upside than Jonathan Lewis would have. And as far as Lawless Abubakar, too, I think definitely Cheeto Awaziam from FC Cincinnati is certainly an upgrade. We'll see about his actual defending. But if you're starting attacks and swift attacks, I should say, like the Rapids want to do, Cheeto Awaziam is your guy. And then you got a pretty good depth move too in Ian Murphy from the same team, FC Cincinnati, and he's a guy who can come in. He's good enough to start in a three center back formation, and if not, if you play the 4-2-3-1 like you did most of the year last year, then he's a guy who's first off the bench and can play some really impactful minutes. There are some other incomings. Josh Atencio the other day from Seattle. Don't think he'll play tomorrow. 5 minutes at most if he does appear, but he is in the state. He is at the facility at the Rapids. So that's pretty. I think that's pretty quick, honestly. I was kind of shocked to see that he's already here.
Nice.
Ted Kudipietro. We'll talk about him too. He was the winger / midfielder that they brought to kind of replace Jonathan Lewis. Sam Bassett, Cole Bassett's brother. We'll see if he plays, but he did numbers at DU. And then we probably.
What is DU? Sorry, is it Denver University?
Yeah, Denver University. They were in the. They lost in the College Cup semifinals last year.
Okay,
so
it's like, and he's on. He was at the NCAA level. And it's coming in as his brother to join his brother in the Rapids roster. Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Right. So
you got a lot of young guys,
Mm-hmm.
and in your main medallions, which, as you pointed out, Armas rounded up last year. I was excited about Colorado last year. I don't know, Eric, how much we discussed Colorado, right? But it was an intriguing roster. Everyone was not happy and excited about Chris Armas, and I thought, he's like, you know what? He's going to give this team a pop. He's got some players coming with him. You can make the argument that the team would have been better without him, but I still think that Chris Armas really kind of put that team together, if you may. All the pieces that they got, a lot of big different pieces, if you may, and made the most out of it within the MLS, roster limitations that all of our teams are associated with. Yeah, Eric.
So with me, what I always thought with Colorado is, one, I think Jordy Mihailovic is probably the best set kick taker in the league.
Yes,
like that guy is an absolutely dangerous set piece taker. I guess with Messi here,
Evander close second, and Messi historically Messi, the best, right?
That,
but yeah,
Mihailovic is so dangerous on set pieces, and
yes,
I've always had a huge soft spot for Rafael Navarro, which looking at whether he's ready to be that dangerous threat that last season it seems like he was starting to warm up to it, and if he hits that gear that he can, he could be a golden boot guy. But
yes,
I feel like last year Colorado improved a lot. They showed some ambition. Zach Steffen seemed like a really good signing. I think in hindsight he needed to change of scenery. We'll see how that fits. And then, but Colorado seems like it has some ambition to him.
Yeah, and now they're playing the CCL. What speaking of ambition, though, ambition is one thing, but as someone that covers the Rapids and has probably been in the stadium and seen different rosters and bad seasons, what is your expectation for this team? Do you think they can make a run in the CCL? Of course, they have to go through LAFC. It's an uphill battle, but even beyond CCL, what do you think is going to happen with this team this year? And do you see Armas surviving this season?
Yeah. The CONCACAF Champions Cup is going to be a grind. You got it, like you said, you got to get through LAFC, and then after that, you've probably got, or you definitely do have
Columbus.
A disgruntled Columbus without Cucho Hernandez, but
True that.
Still, it's going to be a battle. And then after that, if you get through that game, probably Miami. So it's going to be a tough road. But this is a team. Chris Armas is a coach who has said before, and he sticks by it. Any trophy that's out there, he wants to go out and try and win it. You saw the same thing last year with Leagues Cup. They went to third to even get in this Champions Cup spot, and maybe that was for the worse as far as the regular season and the end of the MLS season went. But this team, you talk about ambition, this team is one of the most ambitious. And I think if we're talking predictions here for the MLS season, I think a lot of people, and I can bring up the MLS pundit predictions here, not a lot of belief in this Rapids team this year, but I do believe that they got better. They didn't get as much better as people would have hoped. Definitely not. They definitely didn't take the step this year as they did last year in terms of how wide the gap is. But I think this team got better, and I think they can at least play up to the level that they did last year, maybe get a 7th or 6th seed. But I think their ceiling, I've said it on the Commerce City Radio podcast, brand new podcast with myself and Mitch Carroll, that their ceiling is probably 5th. There are teams in the West who have gotten better, but there are teams in the West who have gotten worse too, and we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah. So let's look into the tactics on this game. Like how is Colorado going to win games this year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to be versatility in the lineups and willingness to change. That was something that we didn't really see from Chris Armas until late in the season. And part of it was due to desperation, I feel like, and necessity against the Galaxy in the playoff series that they ended up losing badly, I should say. But there was some change. The formation they played the most was the 4-2-3-1. But in that last LA Galaxy match, they switched to a 3-4-3, and it made Galaxy uncomfortable. Chris Armas said after the game that that was something they would look at for the future, and they would commit to it, and they have. They went out and got 2 starting caliber center backs. They finally got their D mid in Josh Atencio. They got another winger who has shown flashes, but kind of struggled under a Troy Lesesne system. But I think with that continuity, at least on the wings, especially when you have guys who are similar to Ted Di Pietro, God, it's gonna be so hard to get that name down. But when you have guys around KDP, I'll just call him that. When you have guys around KDB who have been there, who have been in the system, who play similarly to him, I think it'll only benefit KDP, and I think it'll benefit the Rapids as well.
That's very cool, man. I think it's going to be a really well played game. At the same time, very conservative game. Sure. And it will have a lot of elements of both teams sort of smelling each other, like dogs at a dog park, kind of just trying to feel things out. And because it's going to be cold, that's the unpredictable nature of this game. Cold is one thing, but do we have a good playing field for the players to do what they need to do? Because once you get warm, the thermal sensitivity changes in your body, and you will just play ball. You might have frostbite after, but that's up to your medical department to sort it out afterwards. By the way, don't forget, in about 5 minutes, we'll have another discussion with another MLS fan and podcaster. Connor Ennis is just waiting for us to wrap this conversation up on in our back, and we'll be bringing him in right after we finish up with Braidon. But before I let you go, Braidon, I have to bring in, first of all, what we think it's going to be the starting lineup for LAFC for this game. and I will give you an opportunity to give your lineup for the Rapids here. But, I think, Eric, I'll let you kind of talk through this one. As you can see, mine is exactly the same, and I already spoiled the score. So go ahead and talk us through, who do you think and why did you choose the guys that we're seeing here? And, you looks like you're predicting a loss. Is this what I'm seeing?
It is. I know when it comes, we're so spoiled on our weather here in Southern California. When it comes to adverse conditions, I mean, this is a hard thing to underestimate. Also, it's not that this game is just going to be cold. It's going to be close to zero cold, So
yes,
that alone, if you're looking at a game at the 25 to 15 degree range, I'm not so worried about that affecting him. But when you start getting down to like 5 degrees and 0 degrees, it does get hard. It makes the breathing hard. It'll make your face start burning and turning numb. I just know this from growing up in northern Minnesota, that being in that weather outside, it's a mental battle just to like sustain that, let alone play a game on top of that. So it's going to be a lot of mentality with this game. And as I've told you many times, if there's one weakness we have with LAFC, in my opinion, it's mentality. It's like we beat ourselves on games, or we don't allow ourselves mentally to go take that extra step and like throw the caution to win and go for the games. So that's what I think.
Okay.
I think with this lineup as well, we'll probably transition into the 3-4-3 in the second half as Giroud comes out. So, that's it. I think Colorado's going to get on the board first. They might even get a second goal, and maybe we pull one back at the end. But I think probably Colorado scores, we tie. Colorado gets another one. But 2-1, I feel pretty confident coming back to our home stadium and overcoming at that point.
And overcoming it. Cool. Before I go to you, Braidon, I'll just explain. I kind of gave it away. I thinking low-scoring game, and if potential for a 0-0 score. We don't see a ton of these with LAFC, but between the frigid weather and the lack of incentive to really go forward, combined with the fact that LAFC is, to me, still one of the most solid defenses in Major League Soccer, you have all the ingredients for a low-scoring game. If it's not 0-0, it's 1-1, but I predict this thing, if you are better, to stay under 2.5 goals. So we cannot bet here in California, but here's my little tidbit of a bet out there if you can, because I don't believe that this game is going to go to 2.5 goals, but Eric does. He also believes LAFC taking it now. Braidon, before I bring in Connor here for the Minnesota game this weekend, take us through what do you think the score is going to be for this game, and of course the starting lineup for your Colorado Rapids.
So I'll go with the starting lineup first. So in goal, it's obviously going to be Zach Steffen. I think Chris Armas is going to start with a 4-2-3-1, and that's going to be of Reggie Cannon and Keegan Rosenberry out on the outside backs. Cheeto Awaziam and Andreas Maxshu will start in the center. Then your two holding mids will be Cole Bassett and Oliver Larraz. Your wingers will be Kevin Cabral for sure, and KDP is not going to be available for a couple months, reported shoulder surgery. So I think that other winger will probably be Calvin Harris. But you could see Omir Fernandez too. Chris Armas loves that guy. Coached him at Red Bulls forever. And then up top, or I guess in the 10 is going to be Georgi Mihailovic. And then your guy, Erik, at the 9, Rafael Navarro.
Navarro goal.
Navarro,
So yeah, for people that don't know, Eric's a huge Palmeiras fan, and Navarro came from Palmeiras. I'm Brazilian. I am not a Palmeirense, but I'll tell you one thing about Rafael Navarro that gives me hope. He sucked really bad in the first season and had a really good rebound second season. Mm-hmm. Came in the middle of the year, and if you're a Giroud if you already gave Giroud away, I think Rafael Navarro is a good proxy of a player that wasn't there, was brought in during the season, had a preseason, and then turning to a goal threat for his team. So, I really see the trajectories being similar there if Giroud can overcome whatever he's going through. But, Braidon, I really want to thank you for your time here. That was cool. Did you give us your prediction?
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted. You just muted yourself. You were so excited to give your prediction. Go ahead.
There we go.
Oh.
Okay.
There it is.
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, little muff, but go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, my prediction: if the Rapids do end up pulling out this game, it's going to be by 1 goal. Especially in the cold, there's not going to be a lot of goals. I agree with that part. And you saw it last year in the home game at Dick's Sporting Goods Park against LAFC. It was a 1-goal game, and it took some late drama to do it. I think the
Same here, but I do think it's going to be, if it's a Rapids win, it's going to be 1-0, maybe 2-1, but I see more of a 1-0 game here.
Cool. That's it then. Thank you, Braidon. I really appreciate you being here. At the same time, you're seeing Connor here. Just say hi to each other.
Hey.
You know, I don't know if you guys do
Braidon,
know,
where can everybody
each other
find
at
you,
all,
man?
but this is the cool thing about what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring people that, have a quasi interest in covering their team and exchanging ideas next to each other. I like talking to opponents. I like to understand who's playing against us. And so we can learn more about the league as a whole and not just our team. So thank you so much, Braidon, for your time. And now we're not going to stop here. Braidon, you're welcome to hang out here. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Braidon, where can people find you?
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yes, true.
I appreciate that. I am the Colorado Rapids and Colorado soccer beat reporter at the Denver Post. You can find me there. You can find me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at Braidon Nourse, just how it's spelled on the screen you see here. And then I've launched a podcast called Commerce City Radio with Mitch Carroll, formerly of DMVR. We have brainstormed this for a couple months. We put out our first episode last week, just previewing the season, previewing a little bit of the roster changes, telling people a bit about us, our soccer fandom, and how we came up with it. So definitely go check that out. New episodes on Wednesdays. Super excited about this project, and we appreciate you guys for the opportunity, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Braidon. Really appreciate it. And yeah, if you we'll retweet all of your information so people know where to find you and they can get a little bit more information about their Rapids. But yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, and maybe we'll bring you back for the other leg of this, which will be at BMO Stadium. I appreciate you being here with us. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we are just not stopping at all. I want to once again thank you, the over 500 people that are watching us right now. That is unbelievable. It is very cool to see people here live and talking a little bit about LAFC. And at this time, we're going to switch gears and talk about a regular season, which also starts this weekend. And we have Connor Ennis here from the Had Lunar, or is that Had Lunar? I'm sorry, that's your handle, right? From Twitter.
Twitter, that's
talk
right.
to us a little bit about what you do and what your involvement with Minnesota has been in this time that you've been here.
Yes, so I co-host the Lunacy podcast with my buddies Tony Pervenanzi, David Sterling, and Dave Stevens. This podcast has been going on since early 2018, right around there. We usually meet once a week to talk about games, talk about transfers, anything Minnesota United FC related, and we also cover the Minnesota craft beer scene as well. So it's kind of a niche. It's kind of a niche audience, but we get a lot of fans tuning in, wanting some beers and soccer. So it's a cool little thing we got here. But I've been part of the podcast since 2020, and I'm not going back. It's such a cool thing to do every week with those guys.
So, bro, like for this first time I think ever, there's two people from Minnesota right next to me and me. And this is a podcast that I feel outnumbered. Of course, I'm joking. I lived in the Midwest for many years, so Eric and I share that. And, Eric, I'm going to let you just shoot that first question since, you guys are from the same land and such.
Well, I was going to say Celso because my wife is from Brazil, just like Celso. So it's like 2 Minnesotans. I bring her here. All of a sudden,
man, you should.
We're putting together a poker hand in this.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Don't do that, let's do it.
Yeah.
You don't want to play against Brazilians, but... No, it's really cool to have you, man. But Eric, I know you have some questions prepared. Again, we're excited. We're excited about the CCL. It's hard to ignore the fact that we have a Tuesday game and think about the regular season game of the weekend. But here we are talking about this. So I actually will start by asking you one question. What is your expectation expectations for Minnesota this season? It's very simple. You come from a big change, coaching and major players leaving, and you end up surprising a lot of people with the type of season that you had. So, now you have this sort of sophomoric season, right? Do you think you're going to come back and have the same impact that you had after the first year changes?
I would like to think so, and we've brought in a lot of youth over the off season. So I think that's going to be a big plus for us. Eric Ramsay, I'm super impressed with what he did in the first season. I wasn't too sure. It's his first head coaching job. So he was a bit of a wild card, but his resume was very impressive with the Welsh national team, Manchester United, Chelsea, and, obviously his specialty in set pieces as well. It really came as a plus for us. So, but we started off the season so well last year in the first third or so, and then we just kind of took a nosedive in the summer and then got back on our feet toward the end of the season. I think that we are going to do about the same this year, if not better. I think that adding the youth in, beefing up our defense, switching up our formation. I'll get to more on that a little bit later, but switching up our formation, it's gonna be a really big plus for us. So I think we're gonna do really well. The top 4, maybe top 6, I would say, is gonna be where we end up.
Okay, so not even the wild card game. Go ahead, Eric.
I don't think so.
Building on the roster changes, I think Timo Pukki is gone, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Timo Pukki is the biggest loss of the season, right?
And then it looked like you guys brought in some kind of young, fast, and physical wingers to reinforce the team. Like, tell us about the guys coming in, the big changes in the roster.
Yeah. So the first one, I'll go with the center back from Argentina. His name is Nicolas Romero. We got him from Atletico Tucumán. He's only 21 years old. We signed him for a 3-year contract, and he's been a constant starter for Tucumán over the past couple of years. So I'm really excited for what he'll do when he comes in. I think that he'll come in and play alongside either Michael Boxall or Jefferson Diaz. One of the two. I don't know if they're going to put Michael Boxall on the bench this year just because he is kind of getting up there in age. But Romero, I'm real excited for him. The second one is the South Korean, Ho Yeon-jung. He's a bit of a winger, but he's more so a center mid. And he's 24 years old, also signed to a 3-year contract. So I'm excited for him too. It's just the youth all around, really. I think the youth is going to be great. And along with the guy we just signed last week, Owen Jean from France, we signed him from Amiens, another 21-year-old. He could play. He could play in the midfield. He could play defensive midfield. But he's gonna. That's where we needed to beef up, was in our defense / the defensive midfield. So it was a big. We hit our targets, I would say, we hit our priorities over the off season. So we're real excited. Just a little bit of right now, we're just kind of processing them through the green card process, and we'll hopefully see them sooner rather than later.
So, Connor, we've just had this 15-minute discussion with the Colorado fella that, about how cold it's going to be on this game on Tuesday. And I'm sure you grew up, in cold, and you've played sports in cold. You've been to the stadium while it was cold. What are your thoughts about playing a game when the temperatures get this frigid, right? As it's going to be in Colorado. And do you think it's, is it okay to play the game, or what do you think about it, right? Like when winter has an impact. And then I want to ask you a question about changing the calendar, right? To, which to me is always like, well, we can't do it because of the winter, right? But first of all, what do you think of playing in such cold weather? Let's start with that.
Well, I have played soccer in cold weather back in my high school days. And when that ball hits you in 0-degree weather, hits your back, just, skin to ball, that stings. It's a stinger. And I would say, like, if you can avoid it at all, I would say definitely stick to playing soccer in the summer in Minnesota, of course. But I think I caught the last 10 minutes or so of your conversation with Braidon, and he is, it is right. Eric, you were right. it's cold. It affects your breathing. It affects your energy. And the one thing that Colorado has that we don't would be the altitude sickness as well. So
I was gonna say,
which
worries me more, by the way. That's
absolutely.
a difference maker.
I've been up to Breckenridge in the cold weather, and even in the middle of summer, it's tough to walk up hills.
But your stadium's not covered, right? It's an open stadium with grass, and again, the question, and people call me stupid online all the time for it, and I'm like, why wouldn't these stadiums up north, which are housing fewer people than a big gigantic stadium, are not built covered so that they don't have this issue? And I know how expensive it is, but isn't that a simple solution to the problem if we wanted to play around the corner? Eric's like, no way.
I was going to say it's simple yet expensive, of course. But, growing up in Minnesota, you get used to the cold weather a lot easier than some. I would say it's just, being a soccer specific stadium in Minnesota, when you start the season, at the time when it was built, we were starting the season in March, April, and now here we are starting in February. It's a little bit colder. February and January are pretty notoriously cold in Minnesota, but it's part of the atmosphere here. And a few years ago, we hosted a U.S. national team game in the middle of February against, I believe it was
early
Honduras.
Early
February,
a long time ago.
I was not brave enough to go to that game, but I have a few old high school friends that went to the game, and they sent me pictures of their beer just freezing in their hands, just completely freezing in their hands. They had their mittens on, so it's not like a tongue on the flagpole situation, but they were just,
which a lot of LA people don't know the reference.
Oh yeah. And I hope they never have to learn.
Get an ice cube, stick it in your tongue. There you have it.
It was funny because inside when you're, Conrad, I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota. My dad coached high school hockey. I went to Duluth East. Duluth East from hockey up there. Like,
of course, yeah, of course.
So that's how I grew up. So like to me, like going down to Carleton and playing in -7, when you're 10 years old is like normal.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and by the way, zero issue with the fans. Like, you pay the ticket to go and drink your beer, I'm cool with you. And it's 90 minutes. Like, you can make it. I do have a problem with soccer players because they have zero gear, right? And their skin is exposed. So it creates the possibility of frostbite. Other sports, unless you're a maniac, you're usually covering yourself so your skin's not showing, right? Like football and such. But listen, we're not here to discuss weather patterns. I was just curious what you thought, right? Whether this game had to be played or not.
Sleeves, and the fans have no shirts at half of those games.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fine, because and that's fan spirit. I went to a football school, NCAA school, and it was cool. We went out, and it didn't matter, right? But it's more about player safety, right? So that after the fact, you don't have the bad stories like, well, my toe turned purple, and maybe now I'll have 9 of them for the rest of my career. So that's all we're trying to avoid. And I was trying to get your perspective. Is it really that cold to play? But look, we're gonna play, and we're gonna play this weekend, right? And you're telling me that we're gonna be, Minnesota's gonna bring it. And to me, there's not much gonna be a better opportunity to get LAFC caught sleeping, right? Than after a CONCACAF Champions game with another leg coming through, and then here comes Minnesota in the middle of that. So, do you think that gives you an advantage? And what are your thoughts for this game at BMO Stadium coming up?
I think that coming out to LA from Minnesota in February, where the weather is normal, I would say that
it was 70.
No, normal guy.
It was 70.
So normal over here.
See, it was on my way to work this morning. It was -18, so it was horrible. But no, I don't think it will actually. I mean, we have a lot of players that are used to the warm weather. We have Argentinians, we have a South African on our team, we have people. Yeah, we have Joseph Rosales is from Honduras. Then we have a couple of northern people, Dane St. Clair and Tanya Oluwase, who are from Canada. They're used to the cold weather, But I don't think it's going to be advantageous at all, to be honest. I think which is why we're going to have to work even harder. And, along with a couple other reasons and players missing as well. So I think that it's going to be tough for us to go into LAFC, especially considering how good of a season they had last year, and they still got the talent. It's going to be a tough game, I think.
On the bright side, I'm not sure where Celso's lineup is, but I'm anticipating we will have some squad rotation in your game, and we'll probably have at least 4 or 5, maybe even more than 5 starters that are out for this one, because I think we play again on Wednesday for the second leg of Colorado. So it's
in that case, we're gonna crush you. That's what's gonna happen.
I love it. He's like, whatever. Okay, so do you want to give us what do you think? We're bouncing against the hour here, and we started late, but we wanted to at least see what do you think is going to be the predictive lineup for Minnesota, right? I still want to put Reynoso there for some reason, even though he's gone like 6 months.
Busy flashing guns.
You know what I mean? But tell me who are going to be your S11 for this game, and send me a predicted score here for the Loons. For the home opener for LAFC. Don't forget, you're playing a home opener at BMO.
Right, yeah. Well, and first off, the name Reynoso is like Voldemort up here to us. We don't speak his name at all. He's kind of just he's kind of just we're
like
done
Gary
with him,
Anderson.
Right, yeah.
It's like when I said Russian team name to the Ukrainian guy, Eric. There's no big deal.
Right.
Sorry, Connor. Go
Gary
ahead.
Anderson either, man. That one hurts.
Oh yeah, Gary Anderson's a big one. No, I think we're gonna start a different formation than we usually do. We've been notorious for the 4-2-3-1. This time, I think we're gonna go with a 5-3-2. We're gonna go with a 3 center back team. Before I go into who's starting, I think I'm gonna just touch on the one position that we didn't really address in the offseason, which was our right back. And so as a result, Bangi Longwane is going to be our starting right back. And, he's done fine there, but he doesn't really own the position, and he's more of an attacking player. So he does well as a wing back, but he's not meant to be in the back. But Bangi will start in the right. Of course, we got Dane St. Clair in goal, the Canadian goalkeeper. I think our center backs, Jefferson Diaz is on a red card, so he won't start from last year. Michael Boxall will probably get the start. Carlos Harvey, I think he'll get the start on at center back, maybe in the center defense. And I would love to see Nico Romero get a start, but it is kind of touch and go whether he'll be out of his green card process or his work visa. I think I misspoke before. Work visa process before he can make it to this game, and he'll for sure be there for March 1st at home against Montreal. But as a result, I think that third center back will be Morris Dugan, or Duggan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He had a pretty decent preseason, so I think we're going to give him a chance. Left back is going to be my favorite player from last year, Joseph Rosales. I think he's been fantastic, all up and down the left back. Centers, let's see, our midfielder Joaquin Pereira, I think we'll get the start. He's been doing all right in the preseason. Robin Lod, we've got, when we're talking Minnesota, we got to talk Robin Lod.
Gotta talk Lod.
Yeah.
Yep. And
coolest name in the league.
Yeah, Robin Lod, Robin the Hood Lod. And Will Trapp, I would say.
Love it.
And Will Trapp, I think we'll get the start as well, because he's got good experience with
Trap
the
King.
Yeah,
Yes.
Of course.
All right.
And then up front,
he's done well. He's been he's been a good space
solid
taker.
guy.
I'm really excited for up front because we're going to go with 2 strikers instead of the normal one that we usually go to. Kelvin Yeboah and Tani Oluwasei, I think, will get the start. And I really, I mean, I might be shooting for too long
They're
here,
exciting.
but
Those are exciting guys.
yeah. But I really want to compare them to like an Andy Cole Dwight York pairing. I would love to see them just play off each other all the time and have that kind of chemistry the way that Andy Cole and Dwight York did way back in the 90s for Manchester United. So, but those are your starting strikers, and Kelvin Yeboah and Tani Oluwasei. They're both extremely dangerous people up front.
So my kind of last question here is tactically for Minnesota, how is this Minnesota team winning games this year? Like what's their tactics going to be to do it?
We've always been dangerous on the counterattack. We've never, it's tougher to say now that we don't have Adrian Heath at the helm anymore. We've got Eric Ramsay as our head coach now, which I love, but that's still that kind of wow factor that makes us win games is still a little bit up for grabs. But we have historically been very good on the counterattack. When we don't own possession, we kind of just let the opponent come at us, and then we get them on the counterattack. So I think that for right now, that's going to be our strategy. And I think we're going to capitalize on our set pieces as well. I think that's going to be
which is a weakness of LAFC corners, in my opinion. Especially with some changes. When do we play the Loons at Minnesota, Eric? Because I love to go there.
We play them on July 18th.
That's right.
So one thing that Eric and I want to do this season is travel, because it goes some of these away games. So it would be really cool to visit you at that game in the middle of the summer, because I ain't going now.
So Celso, it's a Wednesday game, and my little brother, my family's all up in the Duluth area. My little brother's getting married the following Saturday. So this to me is a no-brainer. I'm showing up Wednesday, and I'm staying there for the wedding, so I will be there.
Well, I'm going to be at this game then. I'm not going to the wedding. I might crash it or become a bartender here. This has possibilities here. I love to go. I actually have some family out there in Minnesota, so it'll be fun to go.
Very nice.
We're going to eat some Juicy Lucy's, and we're going to drink some craft beer, man.
Got to go to Matt's bar while you're here.
I love Matt's, man. Matt's is my spot.
Of course.
Look at this. Two Minnesotas already out.
And then after we're going to the
changing locations.
CC Club was my other spot growing up.
CC Club is great. I go there every year for my buddy Jack's birthday. It's awesome.
Does it still smell like 60 years of stale cigarettes in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bring it back, ladies and gentlemen. We started late, and looks like we're going to end late on this one, and I appreciate you being here. Over 800 people. Again, thank you so much for being here. If you really care about us, go ahead and hit the subscribe. I know we're doing this out of my Twitter because we couldn't get the damn things to work today, but next week we'll have our YouTube and our X both going at the same time with a live show. So thank you so much for bearing with us as we work through our very, very sophisticated production. But what you're seeing here, Eric, is of course the same lineup for the Colorado Rapids, not Rabbits, of course. But just tell me, who would you change? I just want to know from the 11 that you're starting tomorrow, right? Who's not going to play the weekend, and who would you plug in right away for those positions?
So let's start with the back. Long is going to be our captain this year, so I think he stays. Long and Segura, but I think Tafari comes into the back line. Hollingshead and Palencia are going to sit this game. Palencia is going to move up to wing back. The midfield is going to be Igor Jesus. I think Rosales comes in for Delgado to rest him, and I think Wibowo is going to come in on the left side. And then the front's going to be Bouanga, Ebobisi, and Ordaz. That's how I see the lineup. So I'm rotating about 4 or 5 guys out, and we'll see if we can grind out a result. No idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do mine here. I think the deepest positions see some of the rotation, but there's some of them that we really don't have that many options. You mentioned Rosales as being an option. I don't think Cherundolo is ready to bring Rosales to start a game. Maybe, but maybe not.
He was good at Coachella.
No, yeah, that's Coachella. Exactly. It's a concert venue. It's not a real tournament. So that's why I don't believe he's going to start. But it's a good possibility, but it's my concern with LAFC. I just don't see the depth, and then in situations like this, when you have a regular season game to play in between, you're going to have some tired legs because Mark Delgado is an older player, right? And if he can't go 180 within a week, that's a problem for your midfield if you're having to rely on Rosales. I'm already bashing this kid. I have no idea if he's good or not. Right. So to me, the only positions worth rotating at this point are center back. We're extremely deep there. You can bring in Tafari. I don't think Marlon's ready, by the way. We didn't talk about him, but I don't like what's going on with Marlon at LAFC right now. To me, he's currently the fifth option, and he's not happy about that. And I sense some, I would say, mutual frustration. But to me, if you have an opportunity, you rotate the center back. You sit Segura. You maybe bring Tafari in. I don't know what's the status on Chanot at this point. Delgado, Jesus, and Tillman, to me, should start. I don't believe that position should be rotating at all, but then I would give Ordaz and Giroud a break and bring in other two players there, Yeboah being one of them for sure. But I am concerned about LAFC's depth at this point, Eric. That is the common thing to me, which means this weekend I'm only seeing two subs from what you're seeing there. I think we're going to ride hard this roster until this other pieces that may come in this still off season come together and ready to play. I mean, we're still talking maybe Carlos Vela joining. There's all these other things going on here that suggest to me that this roster is not 100% ready. But for this weekend game, I have basically Segura sitting for Tafari, perhaps, if Chanot is not ready. And then I would have Ordaz sitting as well for Yeboah, and let's get him. Let's get the Loons. So I'm going to start with you, Connor. What do you think the scoring prediction is going to be for this? If you may, do you have faith in your Loons to get at least 1 point out of BMO Stadium this weekend?
I'm going to be the optimist here. I think I'm going to say that we don't go into LA and we're not lucky enough to get a win, but we'll get a 1-1 draw. I think we'll have a good attack, and our defense will need some work. Obviously, it's got to have some real game minutes, real season minutes practice to get started into the season. But I think we get out of there with a 1-1 draw.
All right, so we got a draw. So LAFC is going to start with what, Eric? You called a loss tomorrow. So what's going to happen on the weekend after the L?
I think it's going to be close. I think we're going to squeak out a win for the league game because we've always been league dogs, and we always take care of business in the league. I think that Minnesota is going to get a set piece goal on us, and I think a sloppy defensive mistake is going to give one back, and then we grind out another one at the end. But this game could very well be a tie, and I also think that the result of tomorrow's Colorado game is going to factor in heavily as to how they go into this game on next Saturday. I know the team is going to want to win the home opener, but they're going to have a Wednesday one with Colorado coming back that, if we have a rough game tomorrow, they may be sitting people because they're going to need them fresh for that game because it's going to be back against the wall. So I think that's what we're going to have to look for.
Yeah, man. For me, listen, I'm confident. I think it's a home opener, and LAFC has been really good. If you look retrospectively, it's not an easy game to win. I think Portland tried really hard, and we snuck out a tie. But I'm very confident, and Portland was, to me, a better team than Minnesota. And this home opener thing and it being a weekend game gives LAFC a lot of energy, even with a slightly rotated squad. And again, I agree with Eric. If the team really needs a big win, a couple of days later, we might see a heavier rotation. But if everything is par for the course, as I think it's going to be, which is a low-scoring game over there, we have a slightly rotated squad here in Los Angeles this weekend, and LAFC convincingly winning 2-0. Not because Minnesota is a bad team. No, I think LAFC just at home with the pieces that we have, coming out of whatever that CCL game looks like with another one in the back, they're going to want to bring something special for their fans because we know that it's not going to be easy tomorrow, and we need something on the weekend to make everybody happy before the stressful game the following weekdays. But I'm just predicting here, Cherundolo is a very opportunistic man, and he does not like to, not score points at home. And I think he's thinking this is a good opportunity for me to, hit the ground running here and get LAFC as many points as I can in both tournaments, right? Or a good position if you may in both tournaments. But, that's just wishful thinking from a fan that likes to sometimes play reporter and journalist for his team. But Connor, I really appreciate you being here. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce where we find you, and also any closing remarks that you want to, just enlighten us with about the Loons, their season, and what you have going on for this game this weekend.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always great to appear on podcasts from across the country. So I hope to get the chance to host you guys, and when you guys come to Minnesota, I hope to. Eric, like I said, I'll buy you a beer.
I love beer, so you got me there.
Also, I'll buy you a beer too, man.
Yeah,
right. Summits, Surly's. We got some lupulins up here. But you can find, we are Lunacy Podcast. It's me, Connor, and then you got Tony, Dave, and David. You can find us pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, iHeart. And we are pretty active on X right now. You can find us at Lunacy P. Every time we release a new episode, we do a post that you can. It's usually our last episode is our pin post, so you can find our episodes there. And then, we record every week, everything Minnesota United FC and Minnesota craft beers. I'm real excited for the Loons this year. I do think, and I said this last night when Lunacy recorded, I do think that Minnesota is about a year away from being really competitive. I think that they're gonna be a playoff team this year, and they might squeak out, just like last year. We might squeak out a win in the first round, maybe even the second round. You never know, depending on who we play and depending on how we do. But I think that next year is the year that we're going to be real competitive, because we just need some time to get that youth in and settled. So I'm excited for this year to get everybody acclimated to the new coach and the new youth. Real excited for the year after that too.
Yeah, Connor, sorry, Eric, before you go, real quick question for you. This weekend's game, how many saves do you think your boy's going to have? Because every time I see that guy come to BMO, he ends up with like double-digit saves. So 5.5 saves plus or minus for the goalkeeper, because he's insane. To me, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league.
Oh, boy. It's going to be over 5.5 for sure. It's because like I said, our defense is not the tip-top defense. Jefferson Diaz out on a red card. Michael Boxall getting up there in age. And then Romero, we're not sure if he's going to be there to be able to start. So I think it's going to be a defense that is, let's say, our B-plus squad defense.
So he's going to be heroically just keeping you guys in the game, right?
He usually bails us out.
He does. I see heroics every time out of that.
Yeah.
So that's why.
How many goalies have career games against us? It's like
every single one, but he particularly always steps up, and he's, to me, one of the better MLS goalkeepers in this league.
Agree.
So.
I might be a little biased, but I agree.
No, you're not. We see him live, and between him and the Columbus Cat, to me, they're one of the best. Eric, you got something you got to say? I know you do. Before we let Connor go here, and we'll do our closing remarks.
No, it was just the last thought. Wanted to give some flowers. The Minnesota United supporters group, the Wonder Wall, is one of the most interesting and fun, I think, of all the supporters groups. And I won't forget a game 2 years ago where sometime in the first half, the entire group started a cappella singing Bohemian Rhapsody, like just in the middle.
Oh, yes.
And I was just like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever heard in sports. So I
remember that game. I remember that I was there. It was such a great time.
That was amazing. Yeah.
It's the stadium looks phenomenal. The energy looks right. It's definitely one of the MLS places I like to visit, and it looks like we're going to make it happen this season, Eric. So Thank you, Connor. Appreciate you being here once again, buddy. And we'll talk to you very soon. We'll definitely bring you back when we get to play at Minnesota. We appreciate you being here, buddy.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, take care. All right. Well, Eric, it's just me and you again, buddy. We're coming back here. 1 hour and 13 minutes, man. This has been a fun ride.
We cleared 1,000 people on Twitter. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I've seen this number go up. I actually don't believe it. Yeah, I think it's just weird that it's there, but I just will say it. Thank you so much once again for being here We're still putting this thing together. You know, Eric and I are just two passionate fans that happen to sit on where? Section 128 of BMO Stadium. I'm not there a lot because I like to take photos, so I have an opportunity to be down there and do that. But at the same time, I'm not giving up my seat because it's part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. Why did I start doing this? I wanted to take my daughters to something that resemble what I did with my father when I was a kid. It has a historical and familial aspect to me. Now I do something slightly different. I talk about it, but the energy is the same. When I went to an LAFC game, I felt something that I haven't felt in a sports game in a very long time. And for that reason, we like to keep talking about it. So with that, we really thank you so much for being here and listening to us ramble about two LAFC games we have this week, Eric. It's a treat. It's a double week game, buddy. But I'll kick it up to you to just say any parting words before we close this puppy up. And again, thank you so much for doing this with me, buddy.
Yeah, no, same, Celso. It's a great time, and thank you for everybody that's tuned in. It's a really, if nobody watches show, we'd be doing it just talking to ourselves. So, it's just something we like to do.
Well, we do it anyways. We're always talking to ourselves about this shit. So we might as well put our ideas out there, right?
Yep, yeah, 100%. And we'll be here next week. We'll have the YouTube running. So anybody want to jump in the comment sections and banter, we'll have that added in there. And yeah, we're just going to keep going as we go and give our opinion. And as whether people want to listen to it or not, we'll be doing this every week.
We'll be here. Yeah, nothing against anybody else. We love the community. We're here to really continue to just have a voice, right? And again, we really appreciate you being here and listening to this bunch of rambling that we did here. Eric, go ahead.
Last plugs.
Last.
I want to plug Pitchside US, which is a site that also works on, and I also contribute to, covering a lot of MLS and in the context of Brazilian players. So there's a lot of crossover there. Also want to give a thank you to Ian Mackay from Fugazi for giving us permission to use their song Brendan No. 1 in our intro and outro. Huge fan of them growing up, and so it's very nice of him to do. As he quoted, he said, "This looks like a labor of love, and we will always support that. You have permission." So thank you so much to Ian for that. And that's pretty much all I got.
That's it. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. And, as we always say, this is Los Angeles. Here we go.